You know, it's a good thing I'm not an English teacher because... Hello again, team. It's Jess or JashiiCorrin, and welcome back for my February bullet journal setup. I feel like I literally only just released my January setup video, but despite time flying by, I also actually feel like I achieved quite a bit this month. My theme for February is bees, but before we get into the setup itself, we're as usual going to have a flip through of the current month. For January, I went with a rainbows theme, and just as expected, as the month progressed, certain pages, namely my mood, habits, and steps trackers, ended up quite colourful. I've really been enjoying the selection of monthly pages that I set up as part of this one, but I also know that in February, and with going back to school, the time I'll be able to dedicate to filling in pages like these is going to be a lot less. This is one of the reasons why I've decided to go with a smaller number of pages for February. As I talked about in the Easy Bullet Journal monthly setup video that I released on Thursday, one way to simplify your journal and to save yourself time is to set up less pages. It helps you save time both in the setup and in the upkeep of those. Headed into the time-lapse now though, just a reminder that all of the equipment I use in today's video can be found in the description box below. Now, despite this being a bee theme, I didn't want to go crazy hard out with drawing bees. In searching for inspiration for this setup, I came across so many gorgeous bee-themed layouts, with some super impressive and some super cute bee drawings, and very quickly started to feel overwhelmed. I absolutely love realistic and semi-realistic bee illustrations, where you've got the leg segments and the veins going through the wings, but I was not willing to put in the time, and very likely the frustration, to try and achieve that for myself. Instead, I've gone with more stylized bee doodles, sticking with a top-down view for simplicity. The nice part about these ones is that they can essentially be drawn with just sticking some simple shapes together, mainly ovals and a little triangle for the stinger. I've also used a simple dotted line between each of the bees to make it look like they're flying around the quote and the monthly nameplate that I have on each page. To make sure that I didn't intrude on that central space, before filming I penciled in a 10cm circle guideline just to use to help me map out where I wanted that dotted path to go. The quote that I've gone for this month, despite the extra letter that I accidentally end up including, is "The flower doesn't dream of the bee. It blossoms and the bee comes." This one's from Mark Nepo. I really loved this quote and thought it was super fitting for some of the feelings I've been having recently, especially with regards to comparison and getting myself caught up with the idea of having to be a certain way, rather than just leaning into what sets me apart and makes me unique. For my setup every month, I like to have repeated elements on each page to help tie them all together. The elements that I went with for February were the yellow all-caps headers, which were outlined with a small-sized pet artist pen, some decorative hexagon patches, which were achieved by using the Jim Holtz Distress Oxide ink from Ranger, and the bee stencil from Erin Floto Designs. And I also added some decorative lines in the corners that didn't have the hexagons, just in yellow and black. While doing the hexagons, I made sure to stick the stencil down with washi tape, just to stop it from slipping while I applied the ink. I also occasionally used washi tape to protect areas of the page, as well as washi taping over the bee part of the stencil, as I only really wanted to use the hexagons for this setup. Hexagons are one of those shapes that I don't really find straightforward to draw. I like my hexagons to be evenly spaced, having the same angles at each corner, so 120 degrees internally. And while I could totally achieve hexagons that I'd be happy with by doing a whole heap of ruling and measuring, it would literally have taken me so many hours to achieve. I also could have freehanded these ones, but because I'm so particular about having the hexagons all the same size and shape, I am very grateful for having a stencil for this. I did of course have to fix up that error on the quote, and decided to use my white acrylograph pen to do this. I'm not overly familiar with using paint pens yet, so I'm pretty sure I didn't shake it quite enough before I used it, but it did cover up the extra letter quite well. In terms of timing, the quote and cover page took 33.5 minutes combined, from first touch of the pen to my final fix-up. This doesn't include the penciling in time or the, I guess we can call it like ideas generation time. But it's now over the page and onto my habits and steps trackers. Although typically I try to give you guys the timings per layout rather than per spread, as we go through you'll likely be able to see why this was difficult to do this month. For the style of decoration I was doing in this setup, I didn't really finish one page and then move on to the other in a spread. More so, I did the elements that were common to both layouts at once. So the hexagons for both sides, then the titles for both sides, etc. These two trackers combined took roughly 32 minutes though. As I mentioned before, I'm having less pages in my monthly setup this time around, and while part of the reason was the idea of going back to school, not wanting to keep up with monthly pages, that kind of thing, the other main reason is that for February I'm mainly going to be using Dutch Door weeklies. I'm going to be setting those layouts up before February starts though, just so I don't have to worry about setting them up once I'm back at school, but these are likely going to hold a lot of the information that otherwise I'd normally put on a monthly tracker. Things like my meal logging, mood tracking, that kind of stuff. If you are interested in seeing those layouts, and a couple of other ones, I have a Dutch Door ideas video coming up next week, so make sure to subscribe to my channel if you hadn't already, so you don't miss out. I do also have a couple of previous videos on Dutch doors, which I've got linked in the description box as well. For my habit tracker, I'm using this printable hexagon tracker that I made. This one is available to my patrons over on Patreon, as well as some other style trackers like circular trackers and square trackers. I have very much been enjoying making printables, and as the name suggests, I just printed this one off my computer, and then as you can see, I cut it out and stuck it in with double-sided tape. Nice and easy. At the bottom of the page I put a quote, which is commonly attributed to Aristotle, but is actually by Will Durant, that says, "We are what we repeatedly do. Excellence, then, is not an act, but a habit." For my steps tracker, I'm intending on filling this one in a similar way to what I had in January. So like a bar graph, but instead of a bar, I'm going to have a little B at the place that represents the number of steps taken, and then a dotted line straight back to the day number. For some final decoration, I added a couple of little bees to my habit tracker. I didn't want to add too many of these though, just because I know I'll have a lot come the end of the month because of my steps tracker. At this stage, I haven't decided what my February habits are going to be, but I've still got a week to get that sorted. I'm very much looking forward to using the trackers though. I think they're going to be really cool to look at when they're filled in. Over the page though, and onto my social media and Patreon layouts. Having only started my Patreon in January, this layout is obviously new to me. I just wanted a space where I could record all of the tasks that I have to do related to getting things out for my patrons. So posts that I need to organize, printables I need to make, weekly layout ideas to write up, that kind of stuff. On both pages though, I'm rolling up a mini calendar so I can see at a glance when things are going to be posted. On my social media one, this also includes any content making days, and I've also got an icon for any milestones. While I'm finishing this one off though, question of the day for you, what is your theme for the month coming? Make sure to check out the themes that other people have said too, because it's a great way to find inspiration and ideas. For me, obviously, I'm going with a bee theme, and the main reason for this was because something I'm trying with my form class this year is having it all be bee themed. So for instance, we're going to be the 7JS Hive, and to help us with keeping track of our things, we know that at the bell, we have to collect the 5 Bs. So books, bottle, blazer, bag, and any other belongings. That kind of stuff. It also happens that my grandfather's birthday is in February, and he's a beekeeper. So nice coincidence there too. He's not doing so great at the moment, health-wise, so this is also kind of a nice way to pay tribute to him. On these two pages though, as you can see, I have that calendar that we talked about down the bottom, and then a space to write out any posts or tasks that I have to do for both of those. And for the final flip through, we have my quote and cover page, habits and steps trackers, and the spread dedicated to my social media posting and Patreon. A few pages less than my normal setups. That's just because, as I said, I'm going to be doing Dutch doors for the entire February. But I am so damn chuffed with how these spreads turned out. Thank you for watching though, team. If you liked today's video, please do make sure to give it a big thumbs up and subscribe to my channel to see more on planning, productivity, and personal development. Until next time, bye!